Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so excited that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Thank you so very, very much. Today, we're really excited to welcome a New York Times best-selling author. His name is Jason Fry, and he is here to talk to us about Minecraft, The Voyage, a novel based on the video game. Before Jason comes in, we want to really encourage you to stay connected with us, and there's lots of great ways for you to connect with us. First off, we would love it if you could subscribe to the show. So many places you can subscribe to the show. You can subscribe to us on the iHeartRadio app. That's our favorite app. You can also subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podchaser, Podbean, Podcast Addict. Basically, wherever you find podcasts, you can find the Reading with Your Kids podcast and subscribe to us. You can also connect with us on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Jedley Magic on Twitter, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram. We also have a fantastic website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can also subscribe to the show right there. And we also want to encourage you to subscribe to our brand new show. Go to our brand new show, Solve It for Kids. Go to solveitforkids.com. Sign up for the newsletter. We have all sorts of fantastic guests. So far, kids have met Dr. Brian Helmuth. They've met the First Lady of Magic for Australia, Sue Ann Webster. And we have so many other wonderful guests that you and your kids can listen to. So you don't want to miss a thing. Go to solveitforkids.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Joining us right now from Brooklyn, where all the cool kids live, in New York City. He is a New York Times best-selling author and is here today to talk about Minecraft, The Voyage, the latest in the Minecraft series. Please welcome to the show, Jason Fry. Jason, how are you?
I'm good, Jed. How are you? I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to have you on. You know, we are in day whatever of the great pandemic of 2020. As we first connected with each other and we said, how are you? We both agreed it's kind of surreal. We're living in this really weird world. And I imagine a lot of kids are spending lots of time on their devices, and a huge percent of them are probably playing Minecraft. I know nothing about video games. Can you give us a quick, and I might be the only one listening or to this podcast who doesn't know, but for me, can you just give me a rundown of what Minecraft is all about?
Sure. Minecraft is this game by Mojang, which you are a guy or a girl or whatever you want to be, and you are plunged into this world in which you have to survive. So your first thing is you literally kind of punch a tree and create a wooden tool, wooden sword, wooden pick, so you can make shelter. And then it's a lovely world entirely made up of blocks, yet with this weirdly compelling beauty for all that, which was really fun. And the amazing thing about the game for me, I was a newcomer to it when I started this project, is it's just an unbelievably flexible game for kind of your own storytelling as a player. You can, explore the world and fight monsters, particularly at night. You can play it that way. You can dig mine shafts and find valuable ores and make things. You can make houses, machines, massive projects, whatever you want to do. So it's really, the game will support whatever play style you want or whatever combination of them you want. And as someone who has, even as a occasional video game player, I'm always kind of in storytelling mode and will, kind of tell myself little stories about what I'm doing, even subconsciously. So, for me, this kind of big open-ended world was a huge treat. And also, again, the thing I didn't know was coming was just the beauty of the world they've created, and always wondering what's around that next corner, the next bend in the ocean, whatever it is. So all of that went into Minecraft: The Voyage. But yeah, maybe we can convert you. I have had a ton of fun playing Minecraft and made it part of my habits. And so yeah, do the same. Come join us.
That's wild. Talk about coming a long way. My first video game was Pong.
Me too.
Well, this is wonderful. Now, unlike I'm very familiar with a lot of video games that get created based on stories or on movies or on novels, but you've created a novel based on this universe. So tell us about The Voyage and what kind of voyage you had creating this world.
Yeah, for me it started, I was a newcomer to Minecraft, so I said to my editor, I need like 3 weeks to just play this game and just immerse myself into it. And what I wanted to get to, was not only understand the basics of the game, which I needed to do, but what I really wanted to do was do enough exploring and kind of dreaming, et cetera, that my subconscious would start thinking up stories set in this world. And that's when I know I've really immersed in something. When kind of the little elves down in the brain's engine room start working on stuff, and you're like, hey, what are you guys doing down there? So that's what I did. And I built, survived and built a house in Minecraft and played with my house and went on adventures. And eventually a story started taking shape. So the hero of Minecraft: The Voyage is a young man named Stax Stonecutter who lives in his family's kind of mansion. And I wanted to start with kind of an interesting character for me. Like, Stax is well off, and he's honestly a little lazy. He's content with his somewhat isolated life, which I didn't know there was a pandemic coming, so it was kind of interesting. And, he lives this very sheltered, nice, but somewhat perhaps, kind of spiritually, if that's the right word, impoverished life. And then a profoundly evil visitor and his party singles him out and takes everything away from him. And he winds up an outcast and a nomad in this world and has to figure things out. And he starts with the idea of avenging what's been done with him and returning home. And as you might imagine, by the time things are done, he's a somewhat different person. And that was a really interesting idea I wanted to explore, and also a way to plunge Stax and the reader into this Minecraft world with its beautiful vistas and, strange and marvelous creatures and other characters and all that. So I had a blast doing it, both in the exploration and the coming up with the story, and then in the actually writing it. So my hope is that some of all the fun that I had will come through for readers, and they'll enjoy it too.
That sounds amazing. I'm fascinated. Now, one of the things that I've heard from different authors is that they're very surprised at what the choices their character was making as they were writing the book. Is this something that you two, creating the voyage and this character in this world, were you surprised at all by where the story went?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think different writers do things differently. I am really a convert to heavily outlining, planning my books. And so I typically am not surprised. I don't have those kind of 180s by characters because I've thought things out so carefully beforehand. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting. I didn't used to write that way because I think I felt it would be confining. And what I do find, which I'm grateful for, is that even with all that planning, like, I will always change my mind about sort of at least medium-sized things and sometimes larger, which kind of keeps that sense of surprise. What I really wanted to explore was before I sat down to write, I had a pretty good idea of who Stax was and where his journey would take him and kind of the climactic point of that quest, what it would be. But what I hadn't really worked out was what would he decide to the extent that he got to decide. Like when he finally, comes face to face with this nemesis who has taken everything from him and forced him to become someone else, like, what does that feel like? What does he think about? What does he do? And I kind of let myself not be too settled about that and get to the point in the actual writing. And then kind of, as the stand-in for this character, since he exists because of me, I kind of let myself along with him get to that point and then think about where he was and I was and what I wanted from that. And so I hope that's something that lets kids or readers of any age think about what he faces and what he decides.
As you're talking about the Voyage and Minecraft and this universe and how it is, just an ideal place, an ideal platform for kids and players to create stories and tell stories through the game, I'm thinking what a marvelous opportunity this is for a family to sit down and to read the Voyage together, or co-read it and then talk about it, and then going online and creating some universes together in Minecraft. That sounds like a great way to spend a pandemic together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Minecraft is wonderful for that. Some of the I've had a lot of fun. My son is 17 now, but played Minecraft when he was younger. Now he has a little too much homework. But, and he showed me, he knew all these things that I had no idea how to do. So he was like, give me your server and I'm going to jump on there. And he came into my world with his own character and we adventured around, which was enormous fun. And yeah, building stuff together and yeah, it's all great. It's a great way of exploring things side by side and having fun that way. Another thing I really like about this book is when I was a kid, I read The Hobbit and really loved it. And I consciously tried to evoke that slightly antique style of The Hobbit. So, as the narrator in the book, I occasionally will step out of the story and talk directly to the reader. And we start everything with those old time chapter headings, which have little kind of teasers and descriptions of what's to come. Which just, it's always interesting as a writer. You sometimes exactly why you want to do something, and sometimes it just feels right, and you go with that instinct. And that feel for the book was something that just came to me and was really fun to carry out in a way I hadn't done in my other books.
Well, I'm hearing this kind of joy in your voice as you're talking about this. It really does sound like you had a blast, becoming part of the Minecraft universe, and then specifically creating the Voyage, and that's great to hear. And for me, it's a great indication that this is going to be a fun book to read.
Oh, I hope so. It's interesting. I've written a lot of kids' books, whether for Star Wars or whether in my own Jupiter Pirates series. Mm-hmm. And, people will sometimes tell me, like, your books are fun, but they're also really about some weighty stuff. And I'm always like, you never write down to kids because whether we remember or not, or sometimes whether we want to remember it or not, kids have a lot going on in their lives, and they navigate some really complex situations with other kids, with parents, with teachers, you name it.
Well, that certainly is true now. I can't imagine going through this when I was a 13 or 14-year-old. And it would be incredible. And it wouldn't do me any good to, be reading, as you said, books and watching movies that talked down to me and didn't give me credit for the maturity that I have. I want to talk more about the writing that you did for Star Wars, and I definitely want to talk about Jupiter Pirates. But first, you didn't start kind of your professional writing career in this world of fiction, you were a reporter and editor for the online version of the Wall Street Journal for a long time. How did you make that transition from that hard-hitting news to the world of Voyage in Minecraft?
Yeah, I was the most annoying kid in your elementary school class because I just always wanted to write, and my favorite thing was to tell stories. But second best for me was learning something and explaining it. So I was the kid who was like thrilled if the teacher was like, "Oh, we have a 6-page paper." I was like, "Oh, great, perfect." Well, everybody else was like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me." So, for me, I always wanted to write fiction, but journalism was a way I could write for a living. And fortunately, I really enjoyed that too. I loved plunging into something that I didn't know about and learning about it and finding the right people to talk to me about it and then presenting it to readers. So that was great, and I really enjoyed that. I covered technology and like crazy stuff with mortgage companies, which I have to admit that part I never understood. So sorry I didn't do more to help it nearly bring down the world economy, 10 years ago. Yeah, I mean, for me, while I loved reporting, it was really a way to get to write. And, but it also taught me some habits that were were really good as a writer. Like, I hit my deadlines, though I'm about to miss one on a story today. So sorry about that, editors. I'm doing the best I can. There's a pandemic. And I to turn in copy that's really clean, et cetera. So I learned a lot of good habits from there and had a blast. But when I started writing on the side, I was always kind of looking to the chance to do that full time, and I got a chance to do that back in 2008 and have never looked back.
That's awesome. Tell us about Jupiter Pirates. This sounds really exciting.
I like to say it works for ages 8 to 80. It's about a family of space pirates in the 29th century who live on Callisto, one of the moons of Jupiter. And they are simultaneously a family and a pirate crew. The mother is the captain of the family starship. The father is the first mate. It means they have to cooperate as a crew, but they're also competing because the captaincy of the family ship is handed down from one generation to the next. So only one of the kids will get to be the next captain. It's published by HarperCollins. There are 3 books out already. I'm working as fast as I can, which I admit isn't that fast these days, but I'm trying, on number 4, and I think there'll be 5 total. So anyone who's ever had sibling rivalry or, you're an only child like me, but you've seen it happen with your friends, et cetera, it's sort of supercharged in Jupiter Pirates. Plus there are cyborg pirates who say "arr" and all the other buried treasure and space battles and everything that I would have wanted as a kid from a book about space pirates.
That's great. Now, you also have written a ton of stories based on the Star Wars universe. Yeah,
I was 8 years old when the first Star Wars, which amazingly for kids today was just called Star Wars, hit theaters. And I say with no exaggeration that it changed my life. The minute I saw the engines of Darth Vader's Star Destroyer, I was like, wow, things are different. I had just always loved telling stories, but so much fun and full of amazing stuff, but also had these depths to them that were about good and evil and family legacies and things like that. And it changed my life, and I'm very happy it did. So, yeah, I've always had a blast writing Star Wars. I've written for kids, for adults. I've written lore. I've written fiction. It's always a huge amount of fun to play in the galaxy far, far away.
I was a bit older than you when that original Star Wars came out, and it was life-changing. I don't think kids can understand it now. I remember, and I saw it in theaters probably 17 or 18 times, partly because I was working human services and there was nothing else to do in the few hours I had off. But it took you to a place that you could only before that you could only access it through your imagination, and it was just mind-boggling, and I remember so vividly how exciting it was the 15th time I was in the theater watching that, and just surrounded by all those special effects. And prior to Star Wars, I think my idea of special effects with the Godzilla movie, where the guy in the rubber suit was stepping on the Lego buildings, and so it was quite a mind-bending experience.
Yeah, and what really jumped out at me from the very beginning was the characters. I mean, these just amazing, instantly iconic characters. A while back, I wrote a Star Wars book called The Weapon of a Jedi, a Luke Skywalker adventure, and I remember I just I had to pinch myself every day. And Luke Skywalker had meant so much to me since I was 8 years old, and his stories, whether on screen or in comic books or novels, I had just devoured. And now I was actually getting to write my own and add to that story for other kids. And I remember just being amazed by that, as well as, honestly, it was a lot of pressure. I was like, Luke means the world to me. I can't mess that up. So, every day I get to write Star Wars, it doesn't feel like work. It really feels like a dream come true, because in many ways it is.
Yeah. So bring back so many great memories. Earlier on, you were talking about how much fun you had when your 17-year-old son would come into your Minecraft universe, and you guys got to play around creating stories in that world. Can you just that was wonderful, and that's what the Reading with Your Kids podcast is all about. Is it starts when we're reading with our kids on the couch or in bed, all snuggled up together, and hopefully it continues on, so that you're comfortable doing things like playing Minecraft together with your son. Can you talk a little bit more about just the value you see, and as a writer, what are you thinking about? Does it ever occur to you that, wow, someday there are families out there that are reading my books together, and what's that feel like for you?
Oh, yeah, I think about that all the time. I mean, my mom taught me to read by reading aloud to me, and I just remember that feeling like a gift. It's an amazing thing to do. You're opening horizons for your kids, and creating a whole new world for them. And then once they can read on your own, it's still this amazing thing you get to do together and explore something together. So yeah, I love doing it. My kid mostly reads on his own now, but I remember all the time what that was like, reading his favorite stories. Even that one that I think lots of kids find where, that you're reading it as a parent for the 400th time, but, still enjoying what he got out of it. One thing I do as an author goes back to that. I learned really quickly from doing school and library visits, which I love doing. I learned really quickly the value of reading my own book out loud, because it really helps you edit too. You can really, your ear will catch things your eye will not, in making the book read more smoothly. But now I always, anything I write, I read it over to myself and imagine it being read out loud. And some of the kindest things anybody has ever said to me has been, coming up to me at a con or a school visit and bringing up some really battered, well-loved copy of my book and saying, I read this to my daughter or my son, and now he or she reads everything, which is such an amazing thing to have people tell you, and a really good reminder of why I love this in the first place and why I love doing it now.
That's awesome. I'm wondering, it is right, and we encourage kids to read aloud because it is using a different part of your brain, and it helps with your comprehension and understanding what it is you're reading. And it was interesting that you said, you kind of hear something that your eyes didn't see. Were you ever in a situation before you were reading aloud as a habit when you're in front of a group of kids or in front of a group of adults reading a book aloud and hearing something that you didn't expect to hear and find yourself being surprised?
Absolutely. No, it was a school visit in Litchfield, Connecticut, which changed the way I work. I was reading from the first Jupiter Pirates, and I was reading, and I kept getting annoyed by things in my own writing. I was like, that's not quite right. I should have cut that. Just really little things, but they still bugged me, and I wound up kind of editing my own book on the fly, reading out loud. And that was what taught me to just always do that. And the reason for it actually makes a lot of sense. Your eye is really good at looking at a whole bunch of words together and understanding what they mean. And the eye will kind of go ahead. It's like, yeah, I got it, and goes on to the next thing. And the ear cannot do that. The ear has to take each word one at a time. So the ear is much, much better at finding those little bobbles and steps. But it was the funniest thing. I was reading to, it was a first grade class, and I was editing my own book. And I was like, I hope they don't see that I'm weirdly annoyed with myself. But after that, I was like, yeah, that's part of the process. You gotta read it out loud to yourself. And I find so many things.
I had an experience not too long ago. A friend of mine, Phil Joel, wrote a book called Redwoods in Wales, and I listened to the audio version of it. And when we got together, I said, Phil, I loved listening to you read the book because there were just certain parts that you just started laughing. They were funny segments, funny parts of the book. But, as you're reading it, you're laughing, and I can hear you laugh. And he's like, they left that in there? I'm like, yeah, it was great. Speaking,
it's so much better. I'd love to hear that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a writer having fun. That's great.
Yeah. Hey, listen, tell us where we can find more about everything that Jason Fry is up to.
My Tumblr is Jason Fry's Dorkery, because there's a lot of dorkery in my life. You can check out what I'm doing there anytime you want. Or on Twitter, I'm Jason C. Fry on Twitter, though you'll have to wade through a lot of Mets Achita once they start playing baseball again. But so sorry about that part, but you'll also hear about Star Wars and Minecraft and other writing adventures.
Well, there's so much out there, and we didn't have time to touch on baseball. Maybe when the season begins again, or this year, next year, hopefully sometime soon, we can have you back to talk about that.
Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be wonderful.
We've been talking to the New York Times best-selling author of Minecraft, The Voyage, the latest in the Minecraft series, Jason Fry. Jason, thanks so much for spending this time with us today.
Oh, thank you. Really enjoyed it.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. It's going to be cool. Our guest is Brian Weisfeld, and he's the author of Face the Music, part of the Startup Squad series. And he's all about empowering girls to become entrepreneurs, and boys too. It really is fascinating. I had a great time speaking to him. You don't want to miss it. If you're the author of a great children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on the show. Being a guest is fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book. All you need to do is to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button at the bottom of the page. Let us know what your book's all about. We will let you know the next easy steps. I want to thank the incredible team of people that helped me put together this episode together. Of course, we want to thank our guest, Jason Fry. So many things for you to check out. The Jupiter Pirates, Minecraft, The Voyage. Also want to thank my incredible team here, my amazing producer, Fatima Khan, my awesome author ambassador, Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, Thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.